I'm not projecting thoughts. I'm just telling it like it is. I'm not a machine. You are. I'm a biological machine. You're an electric machine. Indeed. So, howdy howdy, this is Mr. Potter. What we're doing is we're taking our first look into the AP labs for this year. One of the labs that we're going to be doing, and the first one we're going to be starting with, is the idea of a chatbot. In other words, a robot that takes your input and interprets it in such a way such that it's having a conversation with you. So notice that I've been typing stuff into this chatbot and it's been coming up with replies to me. Cleverbot here at cleverbot.com is actually a pretty complicated chatbot. In other words, it can infer thousands of different responses and it actually learns from people's responses. Of course, you see, I was in an argument with it about who was the robot and who was the human. There are actually competitions out there to see who can get the most developed or the most advanced chatbot, preferably a chatbot that one could not tell if you're a human or a robot by going into competition against it. Now, we're certainly not going to get into that much detail in our class here, but we are going to be starting a unit with a very simple program called Magpie. Ultimately, what these chatbots do is they take the string that you enter and they look for keywords in it. And they come up with responses to those keywords based off what it's learned that it should respond to. So I'm going to open up two programs here in JCreator. I'm going to go ahead and open up on my desktop. I've got a folder here called Magpie, and I'm going to go to the starter code for activity 2. We're going to load Magpie 2, and we're also going to load Magpie Runner. And so I first want to take a look at this Magpie Runner. What it's going to do is it's going to create an instance of Magpie 2 called Maggie. And it's going to get a greeting from it, and it's going to prompt us using our traditional scanner input that we've been doing. And as long as I don't type in a by, so I've got a while statement, as long as the statement that I type is not equal to by, it's going to figure out what the appropriate response is for the statement that I type. And then, of course, it's going to ask me for my next response. So I'm going to go ahead and run this just to see what happens. So I get, hello, let's talk. Hi, how are you? It says, interesting, tell me more. This is a rather naive robot. It's actually only programmed for a few responses, but I could say, my mother is sick, and she elicits the, tell me more about your family, because there's certain words that she keys in on. And if I tell her, no, I won't, interesting, tell me more, and I can keep saying things, and eventually I will tell it bye, and that terminates the program. So I've got this client here that will keep asking questions and will give me a response based on the questions that I ask. So I want to take a little bit of look into the Magpie class here. So notice I've got my Magpie 2. It's got a method called getGreeting, and it's going to return hello, let's talk. This is how it starts the conversation. And then I've got this getResponse based off of my statement. So there are several things I've got here. I've got my string response equals an empty string. And if the statement.index of no is greater than or equal to 0, then I'm going to see my response is why so negative. So if I use no, or if I use nobody, or if I say no way, as long as I'm doing it with this lowercase n, then it's going to say why so negative. If it doesn't see that, then it's going to look for the index of a mother or a father or a sister or a brother. And if any of them show up, and I'm using the ors to compare them, then it's going to ask me to tell me more about your family. Otherwise, it's going to get a random response. So right now this is set up so it's only going to ask things. If I type in a no, it's going to wonder why I'm so negative. If I say something about my family, It's going to ask me more about my family. Otherwise, it's going to generate one of these random responses. So I've got a method that returns a random response, and there are 4 that it returns. So we're generating a random number. There's 4 possibilities. So I'm taking whatever this random number is times the number of responses, casting it as an int. And if this is equal to 0, say interesting, tell me more. If it's a 1, tell me If it's a 2, tell me do you really think so. If it's a 3, then tell me you don't say. So it's a very simple program. The idea here is that if it's one of our elicited responses, something that we're planning to deal with, such as a no, or tell me, such as something dealing with a family, we can deal with that. Otherwise, just get a random you don't say, or or you really think so, or interesting, tell me more. So if I run into this, let me go ahead and run this program one more time with some planned responses. So it says, hello, let's talk. What do you know about cabbages? And it says, why so negative? Now, the reason it's saying why so negative is because it sees the N and the O right here. And it's interpreting this as a negative statement, which is one of the problems that we have. We're probably going to need to tweak this so that it can handle this correctly. But I could also talk about some other things like, well, my mother is having a rough time. And it says, tell me more about your family. So here I am talking about something that's difficult, and it's eliciting a response. And I can say, ugh, interesting, tell me more, blah, do you really think so? And so what's happening is it's going through those random responses because it's not matching a family name, and it's not matching the no. But I could say no, or I could say none, or I could say nobody, or I could say no way. Anytime I elicit any of these things that appear negative, it's going to say why so negative. So what I want to do with this program is I want to tweak this a little bit. Let me go ahead and say goodbye. I want to tweak this Magpie 2 class because I want to do some things to this. So let's say I want to put something in here where I want it to deal with my pet. So what I can do is after this else if, I can put another else if and put some statements in here. So I could say statement.index of cat is greater than or equal to 0. Or statement.index of dog is greater than or equal to 0. Let me go back and close this parentheses and get rid of one of these closed parentheses. Or statement.index of hamster is greater than or equal to 0. And if this is true, then we could do the following. We could say something like response is equal to tell me more about your pet. So I can elicit a response based off of whatever they're typing in. And I can do something similar up here with this no. The thing is, just looking for the index of a no is probably not the best way to do this. I probably want to see if I see the word no kind of leading off. So I could say or statement.index of not is greater than or equal to 0, or statement.index of, maybe if I see an N apostrophe T, then that could mean that I'm eliciting a negative response. So what I could do is I could add to these negative responses to try and refine this. So if I do get a negative response, then I'm going to actually say why so negative. And this kind of avoids the where if I type in KNOW, it's not going to say why are you being negative when I'm asking something that's not necessarily negative. Here I'm looking specifically for the word no, or I'm looking specifically for the word not, or I'm looking for in apostrophe T. So if I say no I couldn't or no I shouldn't, it's going to ask me why I'm so negative. So the whole idea here is that I'm eliciting statements from the user, and I'm looking through those statements for particular keywords. And so I'm using this concept of index of, which we talked about when we first dealt with strings about a month ago. And if the index of is, if the word doesn't show up anywhere in our string statement, then I'm going to get a -1 out of this. So if I get anything greater than or equal to 0, that means that that string, that substring, has to actually show up some point in their statement, and therefore I can respond to it. So that's really what I'm focusing here. So if I see the word no or the word not or in apostrophe T anywhere in their statement, then I'm going to say this why so negative response. And if I see something about their mother or father or sister or brother, then I know they're talking about their family, then I want to elicit a response out of their family. And then let me go ahead and take care of Gadzooks. It would be helpful if I typed this correctly, greater than or equal to 0. And it would be helpful if I had index of cat is greater than 0, index of dog is greater than 0, index of hamster is greater than or equal to 0. Then tell me more about your pet. So what I've done is I've actually been able to add a little bit up here to make the no situation clearer. I can add one of these statements, but certainly I could add some more statements in here. And I've got these get random responses. The idea is that, they're going to, if it's something that I don't know how to respond to, then I'm just going to come up with some type of non-committal string, something that doesn't refer to what they're saying, just kind of or yeah, or I see, or tell me more. So I can keep adding to this. I could add 2 more responses. Let's go ahead and make this 6. And I can do something like else if which response is equal to 4, then I could say a response gets, I understand what you're saying. And so that would be one more response that would come up as random. And I can do one more else if, let's go ahead and say which response is equal to 5. I can say a response equals that happens to me all the time. So the idea is that I can change these random responses so it seems like I'm not getting the same responses back all the time. It truly is random, of course, because of this random generator that I've got here, and I'm converting it to the number of responses which I change each time. So I can make this have 8 responses, or I can make this have 10 responses. Just the idea of coming up with non-committal responses. So this allows me to modify my Magpie. Now, if I go back to dealing with our old Cleverbot here, aren't we all computers? Then it's going to come up with a response based on our organic computers, and let's see. So, well, you can consider us organic computers. I go, do organic computers like baseball? Trying to change the subject, but we're more intelligent than computers. My favorite baseball team is the Cubs. Boo, Rangers is the team. So, hockey or baseball? That's too bad. I like baseball, but not many sports. So notice now I've got it to change the subject, and I've got a nice little report here. Again, it's looking for keywords here. It probably has a list of all of the Major League Baseball teams, as well as some other teams. And if I were to try and talk about basketball or some other team, some other sport, it would probably try and force the conversation towards baseball, something it's a little bit more familiar with. Ryan Sandberg is my favorite player and favorite manager. Let's see what it responds to this. My favorite soccer player is Nemanja Vidic. Interesting. So the whole idea is that it takes whatever strings that I've put into my statement here, and it's looking for certain keywords, it's looking for certain phrases, and it bases its output based on those phrases. Now, this Cleverbot has the entire internet that it has to search on. It has many years of people asking it questions where it's learned from this, and I can click on this button over here and it's got our entire conversation. So this is what it's referring to throughout its whole memory here. What we have is a very simple one, but something that we certainly could add some things to. So what I'd like to see you do is I'd like to see you add one more response here in this get response, some more topic that it could talk about. And in your output, I'd like to see you actually engage that part of the conversation with your statement. And that's what I'd like to see you do for the first of these chatbot activities. So once again, this is Mr. Potter. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.